It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this hive, and today we're tackling a topic that might just raise some eyebrows. How can a feminist love men? Okay, before we jump into this fun topic, I just want to take a second to thank everyone who is listening and to thank my loyal listeners. I have some of the most amazing Hive members ever, and I'm just so excited to continue to bring content that my hive is getting really excited about. So thank you so much for your continued feedback. I really love it, and I encourage you to keep it up. If you text the show, again, just remember I can't text you back, but I can certainly either give you a shout out on a future episode, or I can answer a question in a future episode, whatever it is that you happen to text in. And I also just wanted to provide a quick stats update because I'm so excited yet a little bit alarmed. So the Hint Hive podcast is now in, 6 countries and 66 cities. Now, that bothers me because I'm a little superstitious and I don't like seeing 666 popping up on my app when I look at the stats. So I'm going to ask that we please spread the word a little bit. I at least want one new city or one new country because I don't want to see 666 popping up anymore. Because like I said, I'm a freak. I get a little superstitious. So either this is going to be the worst episode ever because there's this 666 omen hanging over my podcast, or it means absolutely nothing and I'm being a freak. I'm kind of going with number 2 on this one. So, my honeybees, get out there and spread the word to anyone that you think would enjoy this podcast, anyone you think needs a little bit of extra support and could really kind of hear some of the messages I give in some of these episodes. Just get out there and let's spread the word because, again, I really, really, really am trying to make a difference in the lives of women. So listeners, please help me out with that. I really encourage you to be part of this movement to amplify women's voices. All right, let's jump straight into the heart of so many issues that women face. That damn patriarchy. We are continuing to live in a world where the patriarchy has long held the reins, steering the course of our lives and relationships. It's a system that has favored men, granting them power and privilege while often subjugating women. But here's the kicker. Dismantling the patriarchy does not mean hating men. Nope, not at all. It's about equality, not supremacy. So, given that we're living in this patriarchal system, how can we, as feminists, navigate romantic relationships with men in this patriarchal world, or even navigate platonic relationships? So, let's break it down. First off, let's acknowledge the impact that the patriarchy has had on heterosexual romantic relationships. It's like an unwanted third wheel, inserting itself into every aspect of our lives, from societal expectations dictating gender roles to the subtle ways that power dynamics play out in our relationships. The patriarchy's influence is everywhere. But recognizing these dynamics is the first step towards dismantling them. So let's talk about the ways that the patriarchy has negatively affected romantic relationships. In past episodes, we've reviewed how the patriarchy affects women with some brief mentions of the impact on men. How about today we dive a little bit deeper into the male side of things, shall we? So let's talk about those gender roles and expectations of men. So men are often expected to be dominant, emotionally stoic, and the primary breadwinners, while women are expected to be nurturing, passive, and focused on homemaking. These rigid roles and expectations limit the personal growth and mutual support in relationships, leading to unbalanced and unhealthy relationships. So this is whether you are in a romantic relationship, a romantic heterosexual relationship, or a platonic relationship with a man, because I'm sure that we can, as ladies, I'm sure that we can all recall some uncomfortable misogynistic issues in platonic relationships with men. So again, this isn't just for romantic relationships. And speaking of power imbalances, the patriarchal structure often places men in positions of power within relationships, again, whether romantic or not. And that ends up fostering unequal dynamics where men's opinions and desires are prioritized over women's. I know that some of you have experienced this in the workplace, especially. And this imbalance can result in a lack of respect and equitable decision-making. Guys, this is why we're so freaking pissed. This is why we as women are fighting back. We are sick and tired of the microaggressions that we're experiencing. And now let's talk about emotional expression. This is where my empathy goes so deep for men, because men are frequently discouraged from expressing any kind of vulnerability and emotions, except for anger, which can hinder deep emotional connection and intimacy, both with other men and with women, whether platonic or romantic. Women, on the other hand, may feel pressured to take on the emotional labor in relationships, which leads to burnout and resentment. And I can tell you, in my therapy practice and my coaching practice, I cannot tell you how often we work on that emotional labor, because women are expected to be the ones to figure out all the crap, to figure out all the emotional stuff. And it really does take a toll. And you're seeing movements now. I think Korea, maybe somewhere in Korea, I think is where that 4B movement started, where they're like, we don't need no man. They are sick and tired of all of the double standards and the nonsense. And so they're building lives without men. Now, again, this is, if we could just work to understand each other, we would not have to go to the extremes of canceling people all the time. I mean, come on. How hard is it for us to talk and listen to one another? And speaking of double standards, let's talk about sexual double standards. So the patriarchy often perpetuates, not often. The patriarchy perpetuates different standards for sexual behavior, often shaming women for their sexuality while celebrating men's sexual conquests. And this double standard can create tension, mistrust, and dissatisfaction in relationships. And let's talk about also the pressure on men. The patriarchy portrays men as these very, dominant sexual beings. And that's kind of a lot of pressure when you're supposed to be the dominant one that takes care of a woman and, you're basically in charge of her sexual satisfaction. Holy crap. What, and also what a load of crap. I'm going to say this right now. I'd be shocked that a woman could find sexual satisfaction relying solely on men, because women, we need, in most sexual situations, we need to know our bodies and we need to learn how to get our needs met sexually, because guys don't know unless we kind of guide them, whether it be like verbally telling them what we like, or kind of passively guiding them to the right spot. So again, like, I just feel like this is way too much pressure on men, because they are not in charge 100% of the sexual satisfaction in a sexual encounter. And also, let's talk a little bit about control and possessiveness. There's this patriarchal notion that men own their partners. And again, I'm speaking to heterosexual relationships here. So men owning their partners can lead to possessiveness, jealousy, and controlling behavior. And these types of dynamics really undermine trust and autonomy, which are essential elements for healthy relationships. And also, it spills over into non-romantic relationships when the patriarchy places men at the pinnacle of society and they're saying, you are the boss of women. This translates into men feeling a sense of entitlement at work, or in social relationships. And again, I will preface this by saying not all men are subject to this. I'm simply talking about the structure of the patriarchy. Not every man falls into this, okay? Not every man is a freaking robot that adheres to societal expectations. And for those men, I freaking applaud you. I give you a gold medal for pushing back against this BS, because the patriarchy really is advantageous to men in many ways, but also disadvantageous in interactions with women. And let's talk about the concept of economic dependency. So historically, women have been economically dependent on men due to limited access to education and career opportunities, as well as financial opportunities. In past episodes, I've talked about how, like, when I was born, women weren't allowed to have credit cards in their own name. Women weren't allowed to go and get a business loan. There were a lot of things that happened where women had to get the permission of a man in order to do some of these things. And so imagine if you're a man and you've got women counting on you, depending on you for every single financial decision. If you are not somebody who is incredibly wealthy and in a fabulous job, that can be way too much pressure. And again, if you want to be in that kind of relationship, if you're a man that wants to financially support a woman and you are a woman who wants to be financially supported by a man, hello, match made in heaven, have at it. But again, I am saying as a patriarchal construct, this is damaging. It is potentially harmful to a relationship. And then we've got communication barriers. The patriarchy often discourages open and honest communication, particularly around issues of consent, boundaries, and needs. And poor communication can lead to misunderstandings, miscommunications, unmet needs, and unresolved conflicts. I had to deal with this in my own marriage. And let me tell you, my husband is a freaking rock star, because it's like we had to build our relationship from the ground up, because we were both coming from a generation where men acted a certain way, women acted a certain way, and I didn't like it. And you know what? Either did my husband, but he didn't have the communication skills to verbalize the frustrations and everything of what was going on. And it took us so much freaking work to learn how to communicate appropriately without just spewing resentment at each other. And also fight styles. We had to learn how to fight nicely. because we both have very different fight styles. But guess what? The patriarchy does not encourage men to delve into this. No, because they're just supposed to be these big, strong dudes making lots of money and bossing women around. Like, F you, patriarchy. I'm sick of it, and I bet that there are a lot of men out there who aren't entitled buttholes that don't like the patriarchal nonsense either. And let's talk about domestic responsibilities. Women often bear a disproportionate burden of household chores and caregiving, even when both partners work full time. And so this imbalance can cause stress, resentment, and a lack of time for self-care and personal interests. I can tell you that there was more than one occasion where I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself because I had a child attached to me at all times, and that was not something that my husband experienced. And so I had that resentment towards him that he could go have a shower, he could go shave, he could go to the bathroom, and he didn't have another human being hanging off of him. Whereas I'm trying to be strategically figuring out when I'm going to do all these things on my own. And so that imbalance right there, it caused resentment. And so it caused him extra stress because he had a wife that was worn out, totally burnt, and not able to take a shower or go to the bathroom by herself. So she was a little bit crabby. And then we have some of the more serious issues that the patriarchy sets up, which is the normalization of abusive behaviors. This is where I draw lines. This is where I get really cranky, because these patriarchal norms can normalize and excuse abusive behaviors, making it harder for victims to recognize this and to leave these abusive relationships. And this perpetuates cycles of abuse and trauma within relationships. So I remember back in the day, and I talked about this in a prior episode, when men were legally allowed to rape their wives. I still have WTF moments about this. Like, I can't understand why this was ever okay. And so if you're a man and you are raised in this structure where a woman is your property and you can do with her as you wish, yeah, I can see how abuse can be a natural extension of this feeling of entitlement. And again, like, not every man is an abuser. Yes, I know this. However, I'm just saying the ones that are, they are victims of a patriarchal structure that allowed this to be okay for way too long. So again, this is why me, as a feminist, I'm going to fight back against the patriarchy, because this is not okay. There's nothing okay about that. And then, like, social pressures and stigma, this is, I just feel, again, I feel horribly for all genders about this, because I just wish we could stop with all of the labels, because I think that's half the problem in society. Because society often pressures individuals to conform to traditional relationship models, stigmatizing those who choose non-traditional paths, such as remaining single, cohabitating without marriage, non-monogamous arrangements, and same-sex relationships. These pressures can force people into relationships that do not align with their true desires and needs. And this creates what is called cognitive dissonance. And let me tell you, for anyone who has ever experienced any type of cognitive dissonance, it is a hellscape of epic proportions. When you are trying to be someone who you are not, that creates a nightmare within that can boil over and explode. And I think you're seeing a lot of this with all of this female rage that is coming out in society. So addressing these issues requires a conscious effort from both partners in a heterosexual relationship to challenge and dismantle the patriarchal norms, because that fosters equality, respect, and mutual support in these relationships. All right, so let's shift gears and talk about the good stuff, because I don't want men to feel like I'm beating up on them all the time. And guys, if you are listening to this, I'm not beating up on you. I am empathizing with you. I am empathizing with the fact that society has dictated how you are supposed to be. Because as a woman, I don't freaking like it when someone tells me how I'm supposed to be, because that has been the entire existence of my 50 years on this earth, and I am done. And so, guys, I'm trying to help you too here. So, despite the patriarchy's grip, men are not the enemy. Nope, not by a long shot. In fact, there are plenty of positive attributes of the male gender that deserve recognition. Things like strength, resilience, some of the compassion that they can have, their creativity. These are just a few of the qualities that many men possess. And let's not forget the countless men who stand alongside us in the fight for gender equalities. These are the allies, the champions, the ones who are not afraid to challenge the status quo. And I think of my husband and my son right there on the front lines. These type of men are the ones that we need by our side as we tear down the walls of this patriarchy brick by brick. Ladies, there are men out there who are not the enemy. But yes, there are men out there who are. We need to learn to recognize which one any particular man standing in front of us happens to be. And let's get a little bit more specific and discuss some of the potential fabulous qualities that men can possess. And yes, I acknowledge that these qualities can be found in people of all genders, but I'd like to just highlight some of my favorite qualities about some of the men that I have encountered in my life, both my personal life and my professional life. So, physical strength is often associated with men, enabling them to perform demanding and physical tasks, as well as protecting their loved ones. And yes, I know that there are some women who are, amazingly strong, and I'm not calling us weak at all. I'm simply saying that from a biological standpoint, men are typically built differently than women. And I, for one, am grateful for that, because as strong and independent and feisty as I can be, there are times when I don't want to drag the stepladder out to reach something. There are days, my husband is a lot taller than me, and it's so much easier to ask for his help. And also, my husband is way cuter than a stepladder, so if I can bat my eyelashes and say, honey, can you help me? He always says yes, and it feels good. I'd rather interact with him than a stepladder. Now, that's not to say that, again, being the feisty bee that I am, if he pisses me off, I do that whole woman thing. I can do it myself. I don't need no man. And I hurt myself sometimes doing it myself just to prove that I can. But again, that's because of the patriarchy, that damn patriarchy that wants to paint women as frail and fragile. No, I'm not frail and fragile. Yes, there are times when I need assistance, and I will ask for it. There's nothing wrong with help. Just like my husband asks me for help in things that I do better than him. And how about the resilience of men? Let's give them a little praise there. There are many men out there that demonstrate great resilience, facing challenges head on and persevering through adversity. And ladies, yes, I know we possess this too, but so do guys. And so they need to be celebrated when they do that. And also, men often exhibit strong loyalty to their families, friends, and partners, and they can provide steadfast support and reliability. A determined man is awesome, just like a determined woman is. But again, okay, I'm going to stop qualifying everything I say by smoothing it out because, and making things equal between men and women, because these characteristics, I'm going to just speak about men because they deserve their time too, given that this is about how we can love them despite the patriarchy. So let's move on to their mindset. So men frequently approach issues with a very solution-oriented mindset, which makes them very effective at tackling problems and finding practical solutions without the infusion of emotion. Yes, this can be a drawback at times, but when you need logic and you need the emotion to be set aside, this is actually one of their strengths that quite often they can handle a little bit better than we can. Because when we have that estrogen and progesterone doing all these clashes inside of us, sometimes we are a little bit more vocal about our feels. And sometimes that makes it hard to make decisions. So for example, in my relationship, I often, if I'm like upset about something, I'll go to my husband and I'll say, listen, I need you to check me here. I need you to tell me if I'm being over the top or if I am legitimately upset about this. And he provides a great sounding board because he's not attached to the emotion of the situation and he can give me excellent advice. And I love that. And now let's talk about the courage and bravery. So courage and bravery are often qualities that are celebrated in men. Whether it's taking risks, standing up for what's right, facing fears. I love that. I love a courageous and brave man. And how about that protectiveness? There are many men that have a very nurturing desire to protect and care for their loved ones. And it's such a positive trait that many men exhibit, which contributes to the safety and well-being of all of those around them. Again, men tend to be larger than women, have biologically have more muscle mass than women. And so it's pretty awesome when you have the right kind of guy in your life, whether friend or romantic partner, and you can feel confident that in any situation, they'll be there to protect you if you need it. And how about the compassion? Women are often the ones known for their compassion, but men can also be incredibly passionate, offering emotional support, empathy, and understanding to others. If you find a man like that, definitely make them a part of your life because they've got a superpower right there. And men are also often highly creative, contributing to the arts, sciences, and various fields within, with their innovative ideas and imaginative thinking. And a good sense of humor is also a trait that many men possess, bringing joy and laughter to their relationships and social situations. And then they've got this determination and drive that's often seen in men who strive to achieve their goals and ambitions, and they demonstrate really hard work and perseverance. And I love that. And also one of the other cool things I like is when men serve as mentors and they guide and support the growth and development of others, both personally and professionally. Sometimes it turns into mansplaining when it comes from a not so fabulous place, but the good dudes out there, they can be amazing mentors and I love it. And also, there are a lot of guys that have a strong sense of justice and fairness, and they advocate for equality and stand against injustice. My husband and son are two of those men. When they see the injustices, whether it's racial or gender, I've seen both my husband and my son get really fired up and angry about the inequality in this world. And then how about those generous guys? Men that show generosity through acts of kindness, philanthropy, and support for their communities and loved ones, they are gems. And I love having them in both my personal and professional life. And in the adventurous spirit that some of them have is awesome. I think specifically of my son on this. Because an adventurous spirit is a trait that many men possess, and it inspires exploration, discovery, and a love for new experiences. It can also be problematic, especially my son is very impulsive. And so, that is something that I believe can be rounded out very well by a partner who is able to communicate that, oh, hey, maybe we need to take a second and think before doing the thing. But again, an adventurous spirit in a man can be fun. And also, when you have a man in your life, whether romantic or platonic, if they are dependable, I'm telling you, being dependable and trustworthy is a quality that many men do pride themselves on, and it provides a stable and reliable presence in the lives of others. And I just love that. My husband is probably the most dependable man in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am without him, because when I fall flat on my face, he is there every single time to pick me up and support me. So these attributes of men, when nurtured and expressed positively by them, contribute greatly to the strength and richness of relationships and communities. It is so important to celebrate these qualities while also encouraging men to embrace a full range of human emotions and behaviors beyond traditional gender norms. So, to answer the question posed at the very beginning of this, how can a feminist love men in a patriarchal world? Very easily, by recognizing their humanity, celebrating their strengths, and holding them accountable for their actions. It's about fostering mutual respect, equality, and yes, even love in our relationships. Because at the end of the day, we are all in this together, fighting for a world where gender does not dictate our worth. Ladies, we don't like it when men generalize us, so let's stop doing that to them. Recognize the good ones and hold accountable the crappy ones. I will never take nonsense from a man, but I'm also not going to bash all of them. There are good ones in this world, and we need to recognize it. And if you feel that all men suck, I'm willing to bet that you just haven't been exposed to the right ones. All right, everyone. That's all for today's episode of the Hint Hive. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and giving me a piece of your time. If you want to connect with me, as well as other members of the Hive, please consider joining our podcast group on Facebook by clicking on the link in the description. Also, feel free to text the podcast to let me know what you think of this episode or any episode. Ask a question, or even suggest a topic. While I can't text you back, I can certainly address any questions, comments, or concerns in an upcoming episode. Join me next time as we continue to amplify women's voices and spark conversations that challenge the status quo. Until then, stay fierce, stay empowered, and never stop fighting for what you believe in. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.